Good morning, students. I am Dr. Gaonkar, Associate Professor and HOD of your department, Government Pescador College, Tenkanudi, Udupi. So far, we discussed about a number of topics in international economics of Mangalore University, 4th semester. And today, of course, I am going to discuss on the topic World Bank. I already said it is a twin institution that came up in 1945 after Bretton Woods agreements. These two institutions, I mean IMF, International Monetary Fund, and this World Bank, and this World Bank is called as IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. These two institutions, of course, came after the end of Second World War to correct some international financial chaos. So today we have to discuss on the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. In my last lecture that we discussed about IMF. This is also established in 1945, I say, along with this IMF as per the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944. This particular World Bank is established to assist in bringing about a smooth transition from a war time to peace time economy. It is a sister institution of International Monetary Fund. Functions of IMF. Functions of the IBRD. The IBRD also called, of course, World Bank. This is not necessary, probably introduce again. To assist in the reconstruction and development of territories of its members by facilitating the investment of capital for productive purpose and the encouragement of the development of productive facilities and resources in less developed countries. The word is used reconstructions. It is because I already said that time, at the time of establishment or beginning of this particular IBRD, there was end of Second World War. Number of countries were suffering from number of reasons. One among them was the financial problem. So, and literally there was destruction of their economy, destructed economy. So for to reconstruction of their economy, this IBRD has had to work. Second one, to promote private foreign investment by means of guarantees on participation in loans and other investment made by private investors, and when capital is not available on reasonable terms, to supplement private investment by providing finance for productive purpose out of its own resources or from borrowed funds. Next one, to promote the long-range balanced growth of international trade and the maintenance of equilibrium in the balance of payments of member countries by encouraging international investment for the development of their productive resources, thereby assisting in rising productivity, the standard of living and condition of workers in their territories. Next one, the final one, to arrange the loans made or guaranteed by it in relation to international loans through other channels so that more useful and urgent small and large projects are dealt with first. These are the major ideas or functions before the establishment of IBRD. Membership aspects. The members of the International Monetary Fund are the members of the IBRD. Those who are membership in the IMF are also the members of the IBRD. It had 182 members in 2000. If a country resigns its membership, it is required to pay back all loans with interest on due dates. So, majority of the time, the countries would not like to resign from the membership. There will be a lot of procedures particularly they have to, give back the loans which they borrowed from this particular IBRD. If the bank incurs a financial loss in the years in which a member resigns, it is required to pay its share of the loss on demand also. Organizational setup. Like the IMF, the IBRD has three-tier structure. There is a president, executive directors, and board of governors. The president of the World Bank Group, IBRD, IDA, and IFC, is elected by the bank's executives, directors, whose member is 21 of these. 5 are appointed by the 5 largest shareholders of the World Bank. They are the US, UK, Germany, France, and Japan. The remaining 16 are elected by the board of governors. There are also alternative directors. The first 5 belongs to the same permanent member countries to which the executive directors belong, but the remaining alternative directors are elected from among the group of countries who cast their votes to choose the 16 executive directors belonging to their regions. The president of the World Bank presides over the meetings of the board of executive directors regularly once a month. There is a meeting once a month. So the president is going to preside over. The executive directors decide about policy within the framework of the articles of agreement. They consider and decide on the loan and credit proposal made by the president. They also present to the board of governors at its annual meetings audited accounts and administrative budget and the annual report on the operation and policies of the bank. The president has a staff of more than 6,000 persons who carry on the working of the World Bank. He is assisted by a number of senior vice presidents and directors of various departments and regions. The board of governors is the supreme body. Every member country appoints one governor and an alternative governor for a period of 5 years. The voting power of each governor is related to the financial contribution of its government. And the capital structure, the IBRD started with an authorized capital of $10 billion divided into 1 lakh shares of $1 lakh of this. $9,400 million was actually subscribed. On June 30, 1985, the authorized capital stock of the IBRD comprised $7,16,500. Of course, 500 authorized, not dollar. 7,16,500 authorized shares of the par value of SDR, special drawing rights, 1 lakh each. In July 1992, the total authorized bank capital was $184.1 billion with a capital increase of $9.3 billion or 77,159 shares provided to the republics of the former Soviet Union. Funding strategy. The IBRD funding strategy has the following 4 basic objectives. The first is to ensure the availability of funds to the banks. For this purpose, IBRD seeks to maintain unutilized access to funds in the markets in which it borrows. The second objective is to minimize the effective cost of those funds to its borrowers. This is done through the currency mix of its borrowing and the time of borrowing. In the former case, it tends to maximize borrowings in currencies with low nominal interest rates. The time of borrowing is manipulated in ways. 1. When interest rates are expected to rise, the bank seeks to increase borrowings, and when interest rates are expected to fall, it seeks to defer borrowing. So they are going to postpone the borrowing. The third objective is to control volatility in net income and overall loan charges. For this purpose, the bank started in July 1982 a pool-based variable lending rate system that uniformly adjusts interest charges application to the outstanding balance on all loans made under it. The existing loans were not affected by this lending system. When the majority of loans and borrowings are incorporated into the new lending rate system in future, the volatility of interest rates will be much reduced. The fourth objective of the funding strategy is to provide an appropriate degree of maturity transformation between its borrowing and lending. Maturity transformation refers to the bank's capacity to lend at longer maturities than it borrows. At the same time, it provides its borrowers with a modest degree of maturity transformation. Bank borrowings. The bank borrows from the following sources. The IBRD is a corporate institution whose capital is subscribed by its members. It finances its lending operations primarily from its own medium and long-term borrowings in the international capital markets and currency swap agreements. There is a CSA, currency swap agreements. Under the CSA, proceeds of a borrowing country are converted into a different currency, and simultaneously a forward exchange agreement is executed providing for a schedule of future exchange of the two currencies in order to recover the currency converted. The bank also borrows under the discount note program. That is another opportunity to borrow the money. So first it places bonds and notes directly with its member governments, government agencies and central banks. Second, it offers issues to investors in the public markets through investing banking firms, merchant banks and commercial banks. And banking lending activities. After borrowing, there should be some lending activities too. The bank lends to member countries in any one of the following ways: by marketing or participating in loans out of its own funds, by making or participating in direct loans out of funds raised in the market of a member or otherwise borrowed by the bank, and third one, by guaranteeing in whole or in part loans made by private investors through the usual investment channels. The total amount outstanding of participating in loans, direct loans and guarantees should not exceed 100% of its unimpaired subscribed capital, reserves and surpluses. It guarantees, participates in or makes loans to its members on the following conditions. If it is satisfied that in the prevailing market conditions the borrower would be unable to obtain the loan under conditions which in the opinion of the bank are reasonable to the borrower. Loans are for specific projects of reconstruction or development except in special circumstances. The borrower or the guarantor is in a position to meet its obligation under the loan. The bank provides the following facilities to member countries. What are those facilities? Structural adjustment facility. This is one type of facility is being provided by the banks. Enhanced structural adjustment facility, ECAF, and special action program, SAP. So these are the facilities. I would like to discuss a little more about these facilities. Structural adjustment facility, of course, since 1985, the IBRD has introduced SAF to borrowing countries in order to reduce their balance of payments deposits while maintaining or regaining their economic growth. Enhanced structural adjustment facility. In December 1987, bank has set up the ESAF to increase the availability of concessional resources to low-income member countries. It provides new concessional resource totaling SDR 6 billion, which will be financed by special loans and contribution from developed and OPEC countries. Like the SAP, ESAP is meant to help the borrowing countries reduce their balance of payment deposit and encourage growth. Its financial terms are similar to the SAF. Special Action Program, that is what SAP I said. The Special Action Program has been started in 1983 to strengthen the IBRD ability to assist member countries in adjusting to the current economic environment. So other activities, there are a number of other activities being carried by this IBRD. The other actually include training, technical assistance, inter-organizational cooperation, economic research and flights, operations, evaluation and settlement of investment disputes of members. We will discuss that one by one. Training. The bank set up a staff college in 1956 known as the Economic Development Institute for training senior officials of the member developing countries. So this Economic Development Institute is going to train their staffs so that they can help. They can it help them to improve the management of their economies and to increase the efficiency of their investment program. Its training material ranges from macroeconomic planning, pricing and development policy to the management of agriculture research, rural health care, industrial policy, energy policy, railway management, etc. So these are the areas which is going to cover under the training. So because of training, the employees can work efficiently and their efficiency will be enhances. Technical assistance. Technical assistance has been an integral part of the bank operations since its inception. It consists of two broad categories: engineering related, such as feasibility studies, engineering design and construction supervision, and institution related, such as diagnostic, policy and institutional studies, management support and training. Uh, Next, inter-organizational cooperations. This is the third activity is being conducted by banks. So, inter-organizational cooperation. The IBRD is also engaged in inter-organizational cooperation between the IBRD and other international organizations based on formal agreements, such as the cooperative programs between it and the FAO, UNESCO, the WHO, the GATT. Of course, GATT is no more right now. The UNCTAD, the United Nations Environmental Programs, UNEP, and the UNDP, the ILO, and Asian Development Bank. I hope that you understand these are all international organizations working for one or the other purposes. So there will be inter-organizational cooperation that is inevitable, and that should be encouraged too. So IBRD is encouraging these all type of inter-organizational cooperations. And economic and social research. The bank devotes roughly 3% of its administrative budget to economic and social research. In 1983, the bank established a research policy council, that is RPC, to provide leadership in its guidance, coordination and evaluation of the bank research. Operations evaluation. Next one, the bank helps to borrowers in the post evaluation of their bank assister projects. Bank assister project. It has set up the operations evaluation department for this purpose. Next, settlement of investment dispute. There is always problems in that respects between bank and sometimes the borrower and sometimes intergovernment, and there's there's a settlement investment disputes. The bank has set up the International Center of Settlement of Investment Disputes, that is called as ICSID, between states and nationals of other states. All members of the bank have signed and deposited their instruments of ratifications pertaining to this. No, ultimately that I have to line up with what is the relationship of IVRD with India. And India is of course the one of the beginning member of this founder member of the bank, and hold a permanent seat on its board of executive directors for a number of years. The bank has been assisting India in its planned economic development by granting loans, conducting field surveys, rendering expert advice, sending missions, study teams, and training Indian personnel at the EDI. There is also Chief of Mission of the bank at New Delhi, who represents it for monitoring and consultation on its aided projects in India. India has been the largest receiver of the World Bank assistance since August 1949. The bank's disbursement to India during fiscal year 2000 amounted to $1.8 billion. The total sanctioned loans received by India till were $11,071 million. The Aid India Consortium of 12 developed countries was giving aid to India for its development plans, and at the instance of the World Bank has been replaced by India Development Forum since 1995. The bank also helped India to solve amicably its river water dispute with Pakistan. That is what I said. India has thus gained much from being the member of the World Bank for the development of agriculture, industry, energy and transport. But with reduced availability from the IDA, India will have to borrow more from the bank in future. This will entail a heavy burden on India's resources, for the terms of World Bank loans are much harder than those of the IDA credits. So, this is all about the Indian relations with the IBRD. And as we said in the beginning itself, it is one of the international financial institutions. Not only that, it has to look after the financial liquid conditions or liquidity conditions of the world economy. So they have to supervise in all respects. So India is also borrowed funds, and it has become a part of that particular system. The critical appraisal, definitely this is a financial institutions, and number of expectancy is always there, is very high, and in such case criticisms is it is always expected. So IBRD has been quite successful in achieving its principal objective of reconstruction and development. It helped in the reconstruction of Europe after its destruction in the Second World War. This is what happened, and of course IBRD fulfilled that purpose in that respect. It has also been helping the developed and developing countries alike in the process of growth. Since 1970 or 1970s, it has been lending more to developing countries, not only for infrastructural investment, but also for raising the productivity and standard of living of the poor people. Of the total IBRD loans, $18.5 billion in the fiscal year 2000, member countries in Latin America and Caribbean received 22%, in Europe and Central Asia 16%, in East Asia and Pacific 16%, in Africa 12%, in South Asia 11%, and in Middle East and North Africa 5%, and in others 18%. Still, critics are not lacking in pointing out certain criticisms for its lending policies. Some of them are discussed as under. There are mainly high interest rate. This is always leveled against all financial institutions. It may be local, it may be national, it may be international level. Any type of financial institutions, the borrower is going to say that yes, it is a high interest rate. It is argued that bank charges a very high rate of interest on loans, as also an annual commitment charge on undistributed balances and a front-end fee. Recently, the bank has adopted a new procedure related to the cost of borrowing for calculating the interest rate and front-end fee. So they are no longer fixed arbitrarily at a higher level. Still, the interest continues to be high. It is 7.6% now. Less aid to developing countries. Again, most of the time, the developing countries say that whatever they are borrowed, it is not enough to them. So they say it is definitely less aid to developing countries. The bank has also been criticized for its failure to meet the financial needs of the developing countries fully. Its loans have just touched the fringes of the total capital requirement for their economic and social uplift. In order to increase the bank funds to such countries, it established the International Development Association (IDA) in 1960. Despite this, the bank has not been successful in raising the productivity and standard of living of their people. Its lending operations account for only a small proportion of the total net aid to developing countries. The poorer countries hardly receive 3.5% of the total loans. So, of course, there is fear of NPA and all these things. That is why there may not be a huge amount is lent to the developing countries. However, developing countries also benefited out of it. Faulty lending procedures. The bank's lending process is faulty because it lays emphasis on the repayment capacity of the borrowing country before granting any loan. Such a condition is very harsh and discrimination for developing countries which are poor and need financial help on a large scale. So, discriminations. The bank has been criticized for being discriminating purpose-wise and reason-wise assistance to its members. It is from the fiscal year 1990 that the lending policy of the bank has been directed more towards the developing countries and for the development of agriculture and rural development, energy, transportation, communications, water supplies, sewerage, human resources development, environment, etc. Then hard conditionalities. The introduction of SAF and ESAF has made IBRD loans terms tighter. The borrowing country is required to follow an action program set out in a letter of development policies such as open trade, reforms in public budgeting and debt management, revision of price policies, better planning of public investment, and management of public enterprises. The second installment of SAP is only released after review of the reform programs that are date bounded. These are the, of course, criticisms. But I feel personally that most of these criticisms are not any good, and it is not holding water. In the sense, it is a criticism for the sake of criticism, because there are they as an international financial institution, they have to follow strict rules. Otherwise, recovery will become very tough task. And there are member countries, they are in position to ask why you have lent the money, how you have recovered, and all these things. So it is not a simple one countries or two countries money. That is why in such case the rules and regulations should be very strong. But in spite of that, all the developing countries are every right to borrow money, and it should be used for the sake of development. And IBRD has also very right to the know where and when, for what purpose this particular money is sanctioned, for which it is used or not. So these are the things that should be taken care of. Anyhow, for the international liquidity purpose, the IBRD is working very hard, and to making smooth working of the economy, of the world economy, is its purpose. So IMF and IBRD together, they are doing in their own way. So with this, I am going to conclude this topic. The bank's overall performance must be judged just not its lending, but on its success in providing advice and technical assistance. The bank is laying greater emphasis on developing human resources such as education, population, health and nutrition, and on environment. The bank also provides assistance to the private sector in such areas as financial power, telecommunication, information technology, oil and gas, and industry and mining. In the fiscal year 2000, the World Bank dispensed total $1 billion. So these are the things that we discussed, and particularly as for the reference such I use the International Economics by M.L. Jingan and some internet sources, because data are not available every time. So with these ideas, I hope that you understood the concepts and the purpose, and how the role and how this is doing the better of the economy and the world economy. So with these words, I would like to conclude the IBRD, otherwise the World Bank. So dear students, if you have any doubts, you may contact me, and I may answer for that things. Okay, with these words, I conclude it, and I hope that I am ending the syllabus also. I may have one more sessions in respect of summarizing whole syllabus which there for the final fourth semester MA economics students, and that may include summary of the whole subjects. With these words, I conclude things. Thank you, dear students. Thank you.